Hey guys, Metatrends Mark here. Welcome to another edition of Metatrends and the Next Economy. The book is that same title. How can other professionals actually utilize this information? We just actually recorded a podcast with Jay Coulter. We might be working with him in the future actually. And that podcast was based on how to add intellectual property. So it gave me a couple of ideas about what financial advisors can do. All right, so about 10 years ago, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, then he was just an acquaintance. He had sold one of his companies for $168 million here on the island, and he had told me about a fiduciary relationship, although he couldn't have articulated it that way. So picture there are dynamics, negative dynamics affecting financial advisors right now, and that's whether it's robo-brokers or artificial intelligence looking to put the majority of all advisors out of business. One way that you can actually forestall that or protect yourself from it is to actually add intellectual property to your practice. Perfect example of that would be getting a certification as a mergers and acquisitions advisor. So my friend, we'll call him Larry in order to protect his confidentiality, Larry actually was smart enough to do a couple of things when he owned his business. The first one was he actually hired 2 M&A companies. The first one recognizing that there's a conflict of interest for M&A advisors because they're kind of like real estate agents. And when does your real estate agent want you to sell? Today. So what happens is rarely, if ever, it makes sense for a business owner to actually sell today. So Larry was actually smart enough to actually hire this M&A firm almost a decade in advance of the transaction in order to create what I call extreme valuation. Now, Larry's actually honest enough to tell me he didn't know that was actually going to be the results, and he didn't understand the dynamics. So it was this first M&A's company, their job to actually have a fiduciary relationship with them, be on retainer, create extreme valuation, and the way that they remove the conflict of interest is the first M&A advisor firm was not allowed to participate in the deal, not even to participate in which M&A advisor would handle the transaction almost a decade later. And then what he was able to do is trip over some very, very heady intellectual concepts about the dynamics of why publicly traded companies want to acquire private ones and how there is an arbitrage, a riskless profit when they do such a thing. I would argue that is going to be the basis of my next book. I'll be interviewing CEOs that have actually sold and the players in that world about why people want to acquire, why publicly traded companies want to acquire private ones. Why does it all make sense and how much money can be made and how we can create very durable and sustainable businesses that employ a lot of people in the United States. But for this video, we're going to concentrate on financial advisors. So there's a certification in mergers and acquisitions out of the Alliance of Mergers and Acquisitions Advisors. They're based out of Chicago. They teach this course and take a test for it, certify people, 6 times a year in 3 locations. One is in Pepperdine in Los Angeles. The other is DePaul DePaul University in Chicago. The third is at North Carolina, obviously in North Carolina. And they do each of those twice a year. What I think is so great about financial advisors understanding this is they don't teach financial advisors how to handle small business owners or medium-sized business owners, how to deal with them and what are the challenges they deal with in financial advisor school. They just don't. So what the benefits you can do is create an actual counter-cyclical revenue stream into your business as a financial advisor because frankly, mom and pops tend to want to talk to you in direct proportion to how the stock market is currently doing. So the stock market is doing well and it's on the way up. They want to talk to you more and more and then go dark proportionally to how far the market falls in its inevitable fall. CEOs work the opposite. They don't want to talk to you when things are going good. They're actually kind of fat, dumb, and happy. They're solid tacticians. They're living the life until the market turns and the stock market negatively affects their market. So then all of a sudden they come out of the woodwork. So there are methodologies, and I've talked about them in my other videos, where you can actually send handwritten letters to them on a regular basis. Say, I don't really recommend doing more than 10 a quarter, but you send 13 letters to those 10 CEOs each quarter, you'll walk away with about a 25% response rate in good days and a 50% response rate in bad days. How you create a relationship with them is you treat them as a fiduciary would, where you take them out to a cup of coffee and ask them a series of questions that elicit great responses from them, get them deep thinking about the strategies and the trends affecting their industry. And then if they make sense, if you like them, you can develop a relationship. How you do that is you actually take over the 401k. And in the process of taking over the 401k, you throw in all the other type of coaching that you've been able to master over, let's say, the next 5 years, earning a certification in business coaching, certification in mergers and acquisitions, maybe even a certification in integration. I'll cover each of those in a separate video and what the contacts are for that. But what ends up happening is you walk over the 401k relationship immediately. Now you're on retainer. Now you get to have those fiduciary-like conversations with the CEO, and they bounce strategic ideas off of you to better their company and make sure all of their employees have a job in 5 years. What ends up happening from that is once the actual business is sold, well, who are they going to want to do business with? It is you. All right, so flip side of that is, what if they never sell? Well, no financial advisor, no M&A advisor, no CPA will make any money whatsoever if the company's not sold. So the only person who can actually have a fiduciary relationship with the CEO is the financial advisor on retainer. And you can sit back and say, hey, maybe you really shouldn't be selling. I'll cover those dynamics in future videos. The situation about whether they should or whether they shouldn't. Situation, though, is you can develop relationships with these guys and create a counter-cyclical revenue stream in your practice by reaching out to these guys, sending them handwritten letters, and having really great conversations with them. Now, I'm not anticipating that the majority of financial advisors will take me up on this. But one thing that I've tripped over in my travels, especially on this journey, is I recognize that rarity plus usefulness equals value. More rare, more useful, more value. So if you're one of the few talented financial advisors that looks like, hey, I want to actually do this, so robo-brokers and artificial intelligence can't put me out of business, well, the situation is you're going to be rare. So what we want to do is be able to get the word out there cheap and dealing with compliance. Both of those things do that. So if you're sending out handwritten letters, compliance isn't going to have a hard time about that because you're never going to be talking about financial advice. If you're a certified mergers and acquisitions advisor from the Association of Mergers and Acquisitions Advisors, you have every right to do this sort of thing as an outside business activity. So what you can do is add intellectual property to your practice. In the book, Meta-Trends in the Next Economy, we talk about all the things that those CEOs need to know. We've summarized it all for you. Although a lot of it is free information you get from the government, we've done the work for you. Everything you need in a one-flight read. Thanks for watching. I'm Mark Parrott.